Today, we're diving into one of the most important topics for parents, saving for your child's financial future. Whether you're thinking about college or first car, or even helping them start their own business, having the right accounts in place can make all the difference. I'm Rob Bacharach, CFP Certified Financial Planner. Today, we'll break down the pros and cons of popular options like 529 college savings plans, UTMAs, UGMAs, and one less talked about account that might just be the perfect fit for your family. We'll also cover a few easy questions to help you decide which account is best for you. Let's dive in. The first account that we're going to cover today is the 529 college savings plan. Now, I know many of you may already be familiar with an account like this, but I think we'll probably give you a few nuggets today that you maybe didn't know about 529 plans. So first, for those who aren't as familiar, a 529 plan is a specific savings account that is used for educational expenses. The benefits of a 529 plan are that we can save money into the account. Some states offer tax deductions for using in-state plans. The money, once inside the account, can be invested. It grows tax-free, and as long as the money is withdrawn for qualified educational expenses, we never pay taxes on the income or gains from the investment. That's the primary advantage of 529 plans. They can be used for undergraduate, graduate school, K through 12, trade school, tuition, books, room and board, you name it, just about any expense that has to do with higher education. A 529 plan funds are eligible to be used. Just about any expense that has to do with education, 529 plan funds qualify to be used for. Now, one question that we're hearing more and more these days is, Rob, what if my child ends up never going to college? Then I'm stuck with the money inside of this account. What do I do? More and more kids these days aren't going to college. Entrepreneurial, remote work, the options are much greater than maybe what they were just a few years ago. And it's a fair question. I think when we fast forward 10, 15, 20 years, most of the people that we work with are going to find that the majority of their children do end up still going to college, aside from a select few that maybe really are those unique entrepreneurial-minded individuals, or maybe they're artists, designers, things like that. But even then, if they end up going to any sort of art school, business school, technology school, the funds inside of the account can be used for those expenses. But let's just say they end up at a phase in life where there is nothing that they can use the money for. What do you do? Well, number one thing to keep in mind is that the funds can be transferred to siblings. So if your oldest child ends up not using the account at all, no worries. You can transfer those funds to your younger child and they can have access to the funds. We work with a lot of folks that maybe one child ends up going to a very low cost in-state school, public school, and then another child ends up going to some very expensive out-of-state private school. If that's the case, funds can be transferred easily between beneficiaries and siblings. There's no problem with that at all. About a year ago, the government issued new rules for 529 plans that after the account has been in place for at least 10 years and or the child has reached their age 30, a certain dollar amount of funds, currently up to $30,000, can be converted into a Roth IRA. So the government is already starting to add more flexibility as to what we can do with 529 plans. You say, okay, well, what if there's all right, I converted to Roth, there's still money, there's no uses for this account. What do we do? Well, they could also be transferred to grandchildren when that time comes around. But if that's not an option, the worst case scenario is that if the money is withdrawn from the 529 plan, it is withdrawn and taxed as ordinary income for your child's tax bracket. So if they're an entrepreneur starting a brand new business with no income, or maybe even negative income with the business in the first few years, they were to withdraw the money from that account, they're in a 0% tax bracket. They'll pay you 0% taxes on that income. Maybe it's more depending on state to state and where tax brackets lie at that time. But the point is, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You were still able to invest and grow that money in a tax deferred manner for all those years. If you're thinking, okay, what about an account that is just not for educational expenses? Maybe I don't want to save for educational expenses. Maybe I've got that already covered, or just want to consider some different options. Let's talk about the UTMA and UGMA accounts. And you might be sitting here thinking, what the heck is an UTMA or UGMA account? Sounds like gibberish, Rob. What are you talking about? Okay. UTMA, UTMA. UGMA, UGMA. And UTMA stands for Uniform Transfer Minors Act. And UGMA stands for Uniform Gift to Minors Act. They are very similar accounts with one key difference. Both accounts can be invested with stocks, bonds, money market funds, cash, CDs, things like that. The primary difference between the two accounts is that inside of an UTMA account, the UTMA could also own hard assets, things like real estate or art, collectibles, alternative investments. An UGMA account can really only hold liquid types of investments like stocks, bonds, CDs, mutual funds, things like that. That's the primary difference between those two accounts. You might be thinking, well, that sounds like a great option. I can invest the money. It's not tax deferred, but it's going to be taxed at your child's income tax bracket, not your own income tax bracket. But the biggest downside to these two accounts is that at the age of majority, either 18 or 21, depending on the state that you live in, the child acquires full control over the asset at their age 18 or 20, whatever the age of majority is in your state. Now, if the account, and we're planning to save $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, because maybe it's to help buy their first car or something smaller along those lines, this might not be as big of a deal. But if we're thinking about saving maybe a few $100,000 for our child's future, this might make a bigger difference for you. Are you going to be comfortable at their age, either 18 or 21, them just having full autonomy over that money and can go do whatever they want with it? Because no matter what stage they are in life, no matter how well they're doing or how poor they're doing, once they reach that age of majority, they will have total control over that account. So it's a great option for saving for your child's future, but you have to consider these important facts about these accounts. Don't just believe everything that you read online about saving money for your child's future into one of these accounts. This is a major drawback when we're talking about financial planning. And finally, a lesser known account that people maybe are not as familiar with, or maybe you're familiar with it because you have one of these accounts, or maybe your grandparents have one of these accounts, but you never actually thought of this for your children. The account that we're talking about here is cash value life insurance. And you might be thinking, whoa. I don't want life insurance on my child. This doesn't make sense. What are you talking about here? Well, let me go over a few benefits for you before we talk about some of the details. Inside of a cash value life insurance policy, we can save money for the future of the child. There are no limits on how much can be saved. The only limit depends on the size of the policy. The bigger the policy, the more money that we can save in there. Cash value life insurance functions similar to a Roth IRA, where the money goes in after tax, it grows tax-free, and then within certain rules, it can be withdrawn tax-free and used for any purpose that you want. It doesn't have to be just used for educational purposes or medical expenses. The money can be used for anything that you want. And finally, one of the biggest benefits that people find attractive about these types of accounts is that the owner and funder of the account can maintain control of the asset for as long as they deem necessary. So there are no ages at which you have to hand the money over to the child, and there are no rules about what the money has to be used for. So if you save a couple $100,000 into one of these accounts, or even $50,000, whatever it might be, and later in life, your child is excellent, straight A student, doing well, job out of college. You want to give them the money and make them the owner of the policy and the account? No problem, go for it. But or the other end of the spectrum, if they're not doing as well and you're not as confident in their ability to manage this amount of money or make good decisions with it, you do not have to hand it over to them at any specific age. You as the parent or grandparent can maintain control of that account for as long as you want to. That's pretty powerful. There's a lot of flexibility inside of cash value life insurance, but there are a few downsides to using cash value life insurance. The biggest downside that you'll hear if you research this outside of this video today is about the fee drag on the investment from the cost of insurance associated with the policy. Now, I've got a separate video where we'll dive deeper into the details about how cash value life insurance works, whether it's for your child or you or somebody else, but that is one of the biggest drags. Inside of a 529 plan, there is very low to no fee drag on the accounts, really only the fund fees, and sometimes those are very low, but they're not as flexible. The money has to be used for educational expenses. How do you decide which account may be right for you? I want to give you a couple of quick questions to ask yourself to help narrow the scope of which one you may look further into. The first question that you can ask yourself is, am I okay with the child becoming the owner of the account no matter what at their age 18 or 21? If you're okay with this, then an UTMA or UGMA account could be a great option. I think the biggest thing to consider with these accounts, like I mentioned earlier, is how much money are we talking here? Right? If we're talking a few $100,000, you might want to look a little bit closer at this option because we don't know how the kids are going to turn out. If we're talking about, say, something under $100,000, and this varies for everybody, but let's just say under $100,000, well, you might lean a little bit more towards an UGMA or UTMA because you're saying, look, they may make some bad decisions if they don't turn out to be a good kid, but at the end of the day, it's not an insane amount of money that could go wrong. But I think that's what you should weigh when you're considering the UGMA and UTMA accounts. So if you're saying, no, I am not comfortable with them being the owner of the account at age 18 or 21, now we are talking about a 529 plan or cash value life insurance. Two options there. If you're thinking, hey, my kid's going to go to college, it's something that's really important to me. We were first generation that went to college. We want our kids to go to college. Then great, you've got your answer. A 529 plan is a very easy to use, easy to set up, great place to start for 529 savings. But if you're on the other side of the fence, where maybe you're completely against it, and you're fairly confident because maybe you're a business owner, you never went to college, and you're doing very, very well for yourself, and hey, maybe the kid may follow in your footsteps, well then a cash value life insurance policy for your child may be something worth looking closer into. If you're going to look closer into cash value life insurance, I highly recommend finding a trusted advisor to work with. Somebody that truly knows those types of policies inside and out. Not all products and policies are created equally. There are different companies out there that offer products that are specifically built for this purpose versus just a death benefit type of purpose. You want to make sure that these things get set up properly. There are a few important mistakes to avoid as well. If you're speaking with a qualified financial professional, they should be able to guide you through this process. If you're curious about how we might be able to help you out with it, there's a link below where we'd be happy to chat with you and even just give you some general guidance about something to maybe go talk to your advisor about. I've got a few links below in the video description about where to go to look for 529 plans, UGMAs, UTMAs, things like that. And if you don't have an advisor or you're looking for some more specific guidance about setting up accounts like this or other financial planning topics, there's a link below where you can click to see how we might be able to help you. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.